Welcome, thanks for joining me, astrologer Patrick Arundell, for the latest of my deep dive videos. Today I'm going to explore the journey of the sultry Venus through her home sign of Taurus, which begins on April the 29th and lasts for 26 days. But as this event occurs, Venus is in a very difficult right angle with the planet of power, Pluto. And the affliction between them is going to provide a backdrop for the whole of these next 3 or more weeks. But despite this, Venus will be forging some other very positive influences, and particularly on the 23rd of May, and I can't wait to share that one with you. I'm going to go through all the archetypes, the upcoming aspects, but also give you a flavour of what each of the zodiac signs, from Aries through to Pisces, can expect over this time. New to my channel, it's great to have you with us. This is very much a community. Please share your thoughts. If you're a returning visitor, your views and interactions are truly appreciated. If you've yet to subscribe to my channel, as I've been sharing, we found that 55% of people who view my material are not subscribers. Please help to support the channel by pressing that subscription button. Also click on the bell notification symbol. Every time I drop a video, you should get an update. Also, if you'd like to get your free daily written horoscope fired to your device each morning, please type in www.patrickarundell.com/subscribe. I'm also a consultant astrologer. Check out my one-to-ones. You can see them beneath this video. We don't alter these as they come in, we share them as is. See what other people have found working with me. So on the screen now, I'm showing the natal event chart as Venus moves into the sign of Taurus. This is at 11:32 a.m. Universal Time. And you can see that Venus is in the 9th house based on Placidus and a location of Greenwich. I choose Greenwich not because I'm in Britain, but because of the primary meridian. So Venus is in house 9, which is very much to do with freedom and exploration. But of course, Venus isn't just about the energies of the sign of Taurus. It also represents the energies of the sign of Libra. So that's very much more to do with relating. It's to do with aesthetics, can be to do with presentation, whereas the sign of Taurus is much more to do with self-worth, our values, money, sensuality, can be to do with food, and it certainly can be to do with enjoying the good things in life. But you can see that Pluto is in house 6. So here Pluto's asking us to be much more frugal, and Venus is suggesting in house 9 that we really have a splurge. So we could find ourselves a little bit conflicted in that regard. Pluto encouraging us to be very disciplined and virtuous, Venus much more free-spirited. But in a relationship context, if there is a time where we feel that that person we're involved with is in some way leveraging the relationship to their benefit, Venus being in the 9th house could give us a feel or a desire to break free. Now, of course, we've also got Jupiter, the planet of discovery and independence, very close to Uranus, the planet of freedom, also in Taurus. So if something hasn't been working quite so well, the fact that Pluto applies to Venus is really, really telling. Also, of course, Venus can be about money. Pluto in Aquarius can be about higher values, whereas Venus is more earthy values. Is there going to be a squabble that's going to play out over the next 3 weeks around money, possessiveness, someone offering something, but we need to be aware of if there is a catch. Are they using charm, Venus, to disguise their desire to get something from us? Now also, as this event occurs, Mars and Venus are in a semi-sextile, and that's very positive. But Mars is about to move into Aries on Tuesday the 30th, and that will be forging a very dynamic link to Pluto. So Mars and Pluto are, of course, the rulers of the sign of Scorpio, and that can be very much to do with desire, intimacy, sexuality. But because Venus in the sign of Taurus in this event chart is in house 9, we're really asked to maintain our freedom of thought around our connection to anything that perhaps we feel attached to, whether it is a relationship, whether it is a lifestyle choice in terms of what we consume, whether it's, calorific goodies or something a little bit more nefarious. And Pluto, as I say, is asking us to just be mindful of the impact on our body. Now I'm sharing the solar perspective that we can all collectively relate to. Pluto in house 11, very much about higher values, community, our connections and network to one another, and Venus in house 2. So what I feel here is possessiveness. So if there is a relationship where we find it a little bit more difficult to connect with our friends because we're caught up with the inner workings of a relationship, that could cause some tensions. But what can happen with Venus and Pluto aspects is it also can see us have an opportunity to evolve and transform and rebirth in some way. So a relationship doesn't necessarily have to be coming to an end, but there could be some kind of tug between what we want to do that we feel reflects our longer term hopes, the position of Pluto, and what our immediate needs are and what the reality of those immediate needs. And that's an interesting thing as well. So sometimes people will stay in a relationship because it's security, and the sign of Taurus is of course very much about stability and security. And even though Uranus has been very provocative full time since 2019 March and for 5 months in 2018, and shaken us all in terms of our use of resources, fuel, money, all of those things have really been under a lot of pressure really with Uranus's energy. So Venus moving here can, over these next 26 days, give us a reminder of the good things in life, but also perhaps because Pluto's applying to it, asking us to balance our consumption with an awareness of the impact on us all collectively. So I think that's something we could consider. Now, what about the themes of Venus in Taurus itself? Well, of course, it rules this sign. The sign of Taurus is fixed, as I've mentioned, likes that consistency and really appreciates security. But the sign of Taurus is also about foundations. Because Venus can be charming, particularly through its rulership of Libra, we could use that charm in a very positive way by building better relationships with others. But I feel that that requires us to understand that not everybody's values necessarily match ours, but that's not necessarily a negative. It just makes us different, but we still have some commonalities and we still need each other. So Venus in Taurus can be a great appreciation of good food and good wine. It certainly can be a time when it may be a bit more challenging to stick to any kind of diet plan that we may have committed to, perhaps with those New Year's resolutions. Or some people might be thinking, look, in the Northern Hemisphere, I really want to get a bit more trim for the beach and could therefore try and be that much more disciplined. But I think it is difficult with Venus in Taurus. But if you are in a relationship with someone, I think appreciating some of those simple pleasures, those earthy pleasures, Taurus being an earth sign, a nice cup of tea, a nice walk in nature, spending time in the countryside, because Taurus is very much to do with the land and Venus is very much to do with the aesthetics, what feeds our senses. So we really can have quite an enjoyable experience with Venus moving Taurus, but we need to deal with the challenge that Pluto lays down right on that first day. Now, Venus is going to become exactly square with Pluto on the 1st of May, but the energy has been building up in the challenge from the 28th of April and goes on to the 3rd of May. Now, we're going to have from the 11th through to the 15th of May, Venus forging a nice link with Saturn. Saturn in the water sign of Pisces, and Venus in the earth sign of Taurus, earth carries water. They conduct each other very well. So that's very helpful. And that particular aspect can remind us about what we've got, you know, what we should appreciate, particularly around our resources. So maybe if we don't have lots of money, we can still appreciate the possessions that we have, the experiences we have, but also the people that are in our lives. So that becomes exact on the 13th of May. But Venus becomes exact with Uranus, which is a really exciting link on the 18th of May, building up from the 16th through to the 20th, an electric energy. If we meet someone at that time, it's certainly going to be stimulating. Perhaps there's going to be a lot of attraction involved in the mix. Will it be long lasting? Well, I guess it depends on the people involved. In an existing relationship, certainly a time to try to shake things up, to rediscover that initial spark of attraction. So things have become a little bit dull. I certainly think week 3 of May is a chance to try to be a little bit more spontaneous and try to do things outside one's normal life patterns. But then from the 20th to the 25th of May, we have one of the best aspects of the whole year, when the two planets of fortune, Venus, the lesser benefit, and Jupiter, the greater benefit, come into an exact conjunction. And that really could be lovely. Perhaps we're going to see some kind of uptick in terms of finances. Let's hope so. It has been quite the strain over recent years. But later on, May the 23rd, Venus moves forwards into the sign of Gemini, but then forges a stunning alliance with Pluto. The first between the signs of Gemini and Aquarius in our lifetimes. And because Venus can be about what we attract, and certainly the air sign of Gemini is very much to do with ideas, and Aquarius, despite the fact Pluto going retrograde itself on the 2nd of May, the connection between those two can be really thrilling. So we've got that to look forward to as Venus transitions into Gemini. So essentially, the next 26 days, or 3.71 weeks, is a chance for us to think about resources, our values, our appreciation of the things we consume, particularly good food. Perhaps think more about home cooked food. The earthiness of Taurus would appreciate that for sure. But as this process sets off, certainly Pluto provides a big challenge. And, you know, if we're someone who's living life in more of a material plane, perhaps what Pluto is saying is, look, there's a bigger picture that connects us, and it's not always about money. Sometimes it's about principles. So maybe we are going to see some pushback on some of the rabid commercialism that seems to have gripped the world in general over recent years. Please stay with me as I go through each of the 12 zodiac signs from Aries through to Pisces. To ascend above the following zodiac sign forecast and appreciate the power of more serious astrology, if you give me 3 pieces of personal birth data of time, date and place, I can produce for you your life roadmap report. This will give you searing insights into the patterns that have played out in your life so far, but crucially a much more intimate understanding of those influences, so future forwards you can work with them much better. In my special package of 30% off, you can also get your 12 months transits. That's the moving planets in the sky interacting with your unique blueprint. If you know your tropical astrology already, why not check out my draconic version? This is based on your soul, your karmic journey. This is the energy we bring into this life, the roots of our being. The tropical natal chart is the outcome. It's the fruit of the tree. So the draconic chart moves the north node to 0 degrees Aries, the vernal point, and that is a really fascinating insight. So if you've yet to explore draconic astrology, same principle, you get your character analysis, but also you get your forecast. Please see beneath this video to click on the link for more. So Aries, I actually feel you can see almost immediately some kind of upturn in terms of your financial situation. And because your ruler Mars is about to burst into your sign on the 30th and links amazingly positively to Pluto, if you've got a clear idea in your mind in terms of the things that you want to begin, so new projects, or there are ongoing projects that you feel really inspired by, your extra energy and vitality can give you such a whoosh of willpower that can feed into your desire to improve your finances. But of course, the second house is also about the things that we are attached to, as I mentioned before. So it's an opportunity to appreciate those things in your situation, but also to think about your core values. And some of those could change with Venus's transition. But certainly when we get to the 23rd, if you haven't had an upturn before then, but I think you will see more evidence then of how things are evolving in a very, very promising way for you. Taurus, Venus returning back to your sign is absolutely fantastic because Venus going through the 12th house is quite tricky. And of course, you've had Mercury in a retrograde and also the solar eclipse, all in house 12, along with Chiron and also the North Node. All that 12th house energy is a lot to do with introversion, but it can also be to do with becoming much more conscious of who is with us and who is not with us. And if someone has disappointed you in recent weeks, or in a relationship of any kind, whether it be a friendship, a business association, or a love affair, have fractured or come to a close, you now have an opportunity to draw a line in the sand and begin again. So that's really exciting. Now you have a real appreciation of quality, and it's a rare Taurus that doesn't have great taste, particularly in terms of how you dress. Or you can be very aesthetic, a real appreciation of the earth and organic food and homemade cuisine. But the key with Venus moving into your sign is it gives you an encouragement to manifest your individuality, the first house, in a fresh way. So you may give yourself some kind of makeover at this time, whether it's a new haircut, update your wardrobe in some way or another, but extra confidence is coming in for you, which is really exciting. And also, don't be surprised if someone's drawn to you romantically over the next 3 or more weeks, and particularly around about the 23rd. So really exciting for you too, Taurus. Gemini, Venus moving into Taurus is bittersweet for you in a way, because Venus going through the 12th house, joining up with the Sun, but also Jupiter and Uranus, puts a lot of emphasis on reflection. So Venus 12 can be about withdrawing a little bit and considering the value and the quality of your associations and relationships. But ironically, Mars is about to replace Venus on the 30th in a very sociable part of your situation, linking with Pluto in a much more constructive way. But I feel for you, Venus squaring up with Pluto could tease into the open an awkward issue that perhaps has been simmering on the back burner, something that hasn't been said but's been getting in the way. Do you know, often in relationships, it's not actually the conversation, it's the energy. So there could be some trapped energy that will need to come out. And maybe it's because your appraisal of a situation is different from someone else's. But if there is anything to do with a moral issue or a legal issue or to do with money that has been concerning you, the chances are it will come into the open now. But the best thing about this is it does give you an opportunity to face it and resolve it. And with Mars and Pluto in such a powerful combination, so soon after this event, you do have a chance to get on the front foot, but there may be some sensitive matters that you are going to need to grapple with over the next 3 weeks or so. And it could be that maybe a situation or an involvement, a job, an affection, a friendship has run its course. You know, we can often have an aspiration in life, and when we achieve it, when we actually get to the summit of that success, we realise as I've said recently, that we've changed. We want something different. And that could be around a relationship, or it could be around finance. But you're going to go through a period of deep consideration. And it may be that if a relationship is weak in your situation, that it will certainly need some careful thought. And if there are some sensitive issues to do with the past, or issues that perhaps you felt very self-conscious about, do try to embrace these. But one of the things you can do in preparation for both Venus and Jupiter entering your sign later in May, what you can do is prepare the way. You're clearing the way for that new energy, that new dynamism, which is going to be so brilliant for you. But it's possible that some things do need to make way. So Cancer, with Jupiter and Uranus in that sparkling alliance across the 20th or 21st, wherever you're located, that really was very provocative in terms of your future life direction, but also the type of people you're going to connect with. And if you are in any kind of relationship, whether it's a close, intimate, emotional or romantic relationship, or a friendship, and it feels that you can't quite pursue that new exciting vista that Jupiter and Uranus are prompting, it may feel that you are being controlled. Perhaps you feel controlled because of a joint investment, not just in terms of money, but in terms of time, maybe over many months, many years. Because Pluto in the 8th house is very, very deep. It's very psychological. But of course it can be a house which is to do with deep transformation. So Venus in the 11th house, joining up with the Sun, Uranus and Jupiter, is really asking you this big question. What do you want from your future in terms of your friendships, your own idealism, but also your romantic situation? And is your approach to finance sustainable? Because the 11th house can be very idealistic, but those are the questions you can ask yourself over the next few weeks. It's also possible, Cancer, that you're going to forge a much greater closeness with new people coming into your life, new friendships, new associations, and there could be one person who really does become that much more important. Again, doesn't have to be romantic, could be for a shared interest, a hobby group, somewhere where you can share mutual ideas. But for some people, there may be someone who perhaps up until now has been just a platonic friend, could become much more of interest to you. So Leo, charm will get you everywhere. Over the next few weeks, your personality power is definitely going to be amplified. And where this can show itself most of all is your interaction with the world at large, because the Sun, Uranus and Jupiter are already activating that part of your situation. Now, in some ways, Jupiter and Uranus's conjunction was being quite provocative to you, who's a fixed sign, and of course the host is a fixed sign, and maybe something's in the offing which is seeing you transform your work, but that could be a little bit of a contentious point. Now, maybe it is with a partner. If you're wanting to go in a different direction, maybe for them that feels a bit unsettling. Or perhaps it is at work, where your ability as a people person, which is very, very strong, someone around you could be a little bit jealous or threatened by that. Or perhaps it's just a personality issue where someone feels that the way that you should be is not necessarily the way you want to be. And however much you bend into the situation and try to find a sort of way of working through this, it may be that that tension is hard to shift. So that's Pluto squaring up with Venus. But certainly once Venus and Jupiter come into that conjunction on the 23rd, it could be extremely lucky for you if you're launching a new business, making an application for a new job, meeting someone influential, doing a presentation. That can be a sparkling moment in the whole celestial year. So Virgo, Venus moving into your sister Earth sign to join up with the Sun, Uranus and Jupiter in your 9th house suggests if you are travelling anywhere over the next 3 weeks, it really could be a very, very uplifting experience, because Venus can give us an appreciation of smells. You know, it really feeds our senses. So if you're somewhere where there's gorgeous scents or lovely food or wonderful scenes, that can all feed into your senses. So lovely. Also, there could be a connection with someone who's very different to you. Maybe that could be from the comforts of your home. You're chatting to someone online. They may be different culturally, they may come from a different country, but there's something about that that actually makes them all the more intriguing. What about the square with Pluto? Well, Pluto's in the part of your situation that's to do with obligation. And in a way, Pluto being there is interesting for your sign, because you accept responsibility and discipline in a way that some other zodiac signs don't. So Uranus and Jupiter have been provoking you really to be more experimental, more adventurous, not be quite so focused on a very regular form of life. So Venus clashing with Pluto suggests that someone may be resentful about you wanting to be a bit freer and more independent, or someone may remind you of your responsibilities and obligations, in other words, guilt you out. But equally, maybe the battle is within yourself. There may be part of you that feels that you should be doing something that's very earnest and worthy, whereas actually this collection of energy in Taurus is pushing you to be more frivolous, to change things up, be more spontaneous, and not be so quite worried about being a good egg. Libra, Venus, of course, is your ruler, and the energy that your sign has from Venus is very much to do with the skill of relating, of listening, of being very delicate and diplomatic in your interactions. Also a great appreciation of presentation. And that diplomacy in some ways can be heightened in the sign of Taurus, but I think it's much more to do with where you're most invested. Now, that investment can be in an emotional, spiritual, psychological, financial, or even sexual sense. So if you're wanting to connect with someone in a very meaningful way in your life, Venus can attract that to you through the month of May. There's no doubt about that at all. Of course, the opposite can be true in the sense that as Venus makes its way into Gemini, and then from the 26th Jupiter too, that could push you to escape from something that isn't working. So the 8th house can be about transformations. And it's strange because as we start this process, Pluto is very much the challenge, but as we end it, as Venus makes its way into your sister air sign of Gemini, Pluto very much becomes the good guy. So it just depends. If you feel that there's a situation that's very controlled and psychologically is very limiting and is lowering of your mood, that should be something you should consider very carefully whether you want it to continue. And with Mars about to burst into your opposite sign and linking very positively to Pluto, you do have perhaps a fork in the road to make a big decision. But if you're all in with someone, you could benefit from their fortune. So someone could have a legacy, a payout on an insurance premium, some just straight out fortune, and you'll benefit from that as well. That's one of the things with Venus in the 8th house. But your charm and diplomacy can certainly be helpful to you. But if you are in a situation that feels very controlled, with someone who's very jealous or possessive, you need to think about that situation carefully. So Scorpio, Venus moving into your opposite sign evokes the energy of Venus's rulership of Libra, because the 7th house is where we collaborate, cooperate, flex, give and take. It's not necessarily all about what we want. Pluto, however, in your 4th house is really amping up your emotional awareness at this time. And even if someone is being very pleasant to you, the chances are with Venus squaring with Pluto, you're cutting through that and trying to decode what they really mean. Ironically, your other ruler, Mars, is collaborating with Pluto at this time in a fantastic way. And of course, Venus and Mars are also on good terms. But Pluto doesn't take any prisoners. It is about transformation. And I think in a close relationship, it may be around your family, could be around a friendship, doesn't have to just be around a romance. You could reach a bit of a tense moment at the start of this transition. But if you're prepared to sort of lean into it, understand where the other person is coming from, but also be diplomatic about what you want. I think Scorpio people can be quite guarded and quite defended, but also make very pithy comments on what they observe. And that can actually be difficult for the other person. And sometimes that's a mask, I feel, for your vulnerability. So Venus squaring Pluto has a number of potential outcomes, but if there is something you're finding difficult, diplomacy is a good way to express it. But at the end of the day, if someone is being too diplomatic with you, you may dismiss it because you feel they're being a bit superficial and they're not really being real. If you're single, however, the fact that Venus applies to Jupiter by the 23rd can be really great. In fact, even that sextile with Saturn, which becomes exact on the 13th, because if you did connect to someone then, the chances are they're going to stick around in your life for a while. That's really, really lovely. But the combination between Venus and Uranus perhaps brings a bit of spark, but that conjunction with Jupiter could bring an all-out piece of good fortune around a connection you make. It could be around a romantic situation, but perhaps it'd be about a new business contact or a new association, which could really pay off well for you. So Sagittarius, Venus moves into your 6th house. 6th house is where we meet our obligations. It's about where we need to be thoughtful. It's about the structure of situations. So Venus in the 6th house could see you revisiting what you eat and drink, finding refinements there. But equally, I think Venus in the 6th house suggests, especially with the square with Pluto, if you work with someone where you tend to be, very giving, or at home, around the domestic sphere, if you're very giving and other people are not, Pluto could give you a desire with what you articulate, the 3rd house, to cut through the apparent charm of Venus and tell it as it is. But Venus in the 6th house suggests that the way you express love and affection could be in a more practical way over the next few weeks. But as Venus aligns with your ruler Jupiter, that can be very, very good if you're looking for a new job or to reorder your finances in some kind of more efficient manner. So Capricorn, Venus moving into your 5th house, that's lovely. It's very, very glamorous. This is an opportunity for you to really feel gorgeous and strut your stuff over the next few weeks, and it could draw some real magic to you, particularly if you're prepared to be more interactive socially. But because Pluto is there, if there is someone that you're drawn to, don't be tempted, if it's somebody new, to do something like a grand gesture. I think that could actually be something that exposes you a little bit. Stick with what you feel comfortable with. It's good to be generous, but we can be generous in a thoughtful way without necessarily spending a lot of money. So if there's someone who's really catching your imagination, I wouldn't try too hard to woo them. Just let things evolve, because as Venus moves forwards, it's going to really give you some great opportunities. But one of the great ways to make the most of this is by getting out and about. So accept invitations, set things up. If you do have a date around the 23rd, it could prove to be very auspicious. If you are in an existing relationship and you feel that your partner is too focused on the material sphere and doesn't give you enough affection, that could be something that you feel with Venus's square with Pluto. But also you have an opportunity to tell them how you feel. If you're sort of not really expressing that feeling, this could be an opportunity to do so. And because Mars is about to move into your 4th house, if something does bug you, it needs to come out. Otherwise, you could find yourself it being quite prickly, even with Venus moving through such a glamorous part of your situation. But if you have thought of perhaps changing the way you dress, or even the type of haunts that you go to, the places you meet up and socialise with people, bringing a freshness to all those things, particularly as Venus combines with Uranus from the 16th through to the 20th of May, could be really positive. So Aquarius, Venus moving into your 4th house is excellent for decorating. I'm sorry, we've got a big job in that regard to do, having done it twice already over the last couple of years. But Venus moving into the 4th house gives us an appreciation of our home, but crucially our environment. If you are someone who's a lover of nature, the chances are you can really get out and immerse yourself in it over the next 3 or more weeks. So whether it's beautiful countryside scenes near water, the 4th house, very moon-like, certainly feeling that your environment works for you. So even low-cost changes like moving the furniture around could be something that can please your senses. What about Pluto? Well, if there is a situation in your emotional life where someone's pushing you to open up a little bit and get in contact with your more feeling side and not demonstrate so much your logical airy side, you may feel that that is a bit tough and they're putting something on you, but try to consider it, because one way or another, Uranus over the last few years has been making changes around home, family, emotions, whether us Aquarians like it or not. So accepting that and using the charm of Venus to work with it, even if it feels a bit tough with Pluto in Aquarius, then go with it, because the emotional sphere is really what gives us the basis for our whole existence. And the most important home we have is our connection to our tummies, to our inner world, our feelings. So if you're resisting that because it feels a bit like you would be showing your vulnerabilities or weaknesses, try not to respond in that way. So the more you can embrace the feeling, family, emotional and family side of life, the better over the next few weeks. And if you are wanting to add to your clan, the conjunction between Venus and Jupiter on the 23rd could prove to be really quite helpful. So Pisces, Venus moving into the 3rd house, where you've had Uranus shaking things up in a big way over the last few years. But Venus in the 3rd house can be very good for expressing ideas with a bit more care. You may find that someone hangs on your every word over the next few weeks. Could be someone new you meet. If you are someone who writes music or loves writing, or you do write for a living, you could find that you're going to be in demand, because Venus can be about money. 3rd house is about the currency of ideas, but it's ideas with feeling and with a practical dimension because of the host being Taurus. But what about Pluto? Well, I think it's possible that a conversation could occur at some time over the next few weeks, but particularly at the start of Venus's transit, where some sensitive matters do come into the open. For example, someone could make an observation about the way you are, and it could be a bit jarring, but they may not actually mean it in a sinister way. But Pluto in the 12th house is very deep. And if there's deep old stuff around relationships, which is self-limiting your thinking, 3rd house, how we think, then this would be a good time to really try and work on that and let it go and release it. But Venus moving through the 3rd house suggests you may consider a new mode of transport. Venus in the 3rd house could see you having some lovely chats. You could even find yourself chatting to someone in your locality and finding that actually it's really pleasant. If you are someone who likes to go out on short journeys, those can also be very lovely for your senses. And if you're someone who likes a flutter, it wouldn't be too much beyond the realm of possibility with Venus and Jupiter, the two planets of fortune, coming together on the 23rd. Why not? If that's something you like to do regularly, if you choose that exact date, it could work out quite well for you. It's been a real pleasure being with you and sharing Venus's transition through Taurus. Thank you so much for joining me, wishing you all the best of it. And as I mentioned, if you've yet to subscribe to my channel, I'd be really grateful if you did so now.